Welcome everyone once again to this month's Wildlife for Lunch webinar. Today's webinar is titled Because Ranching and Wildlife Go Together. It's presented by Dr. Tyler Campbell of the East Foundation. Today's webinar is made possible through funding provided by the San Antonio Livestock Exposition Incorporated. It's hosted by the Texas Wildlife Association and Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. With that, Tyler, you should have the controls and you're ready to go.
Okay, thank you so much, Clint. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly fine.
Excellent. Well, it's my honor and privilege to be presenting to y'all today on really the talk is really focused on the East Foundation, and we're firmly entrenched and firmly believe that we exist, and the East family wanted us to exist because they felt that ranching and wildlife do go together. And so really the kind of as an outline for this talk, we'll go through some of our reasons why we exist statements, some priorities that we have, some individual research projects that we've implemented, as well as some education projects, and then we'll wrap it up at the end there. But again, I just wanted to thank the Texas Wildlife Association and specifically Clint Foss for inviting me and for making this and organizing this and making it possible. Also would like to thank Cassie Schaefer, who's been helping me on the IT side of the computer here, I guess. So she's been fantastic, and I'm currently sitting in Olivia's desk. So a big kudos to Olivia as well, as she's made her space available. So let's see. The story of the East really kind of begins in the turn of the last century, early part of the 19th century. Tom T. East is really the patriarch of the East Foundation and the East family, and he registered his brand. You see the lazy diamond there on the horse quarter. He registered that brand before he even owned any cattle. So he was really a visionary and had a big plan and big scope for what he wanted to accomplish throughout his life. Let's see, in about 1915, Tom T. East, which you see on the left, married Alice Gertrudis Clayburgh East, which she became East. Again, they married in 1915 on the King Ranch, and they promptly left the wedding ceremony and went to their property, the San Antonio Viejo Ranch, which is about 20 to 30 miles south of Hebronville, which is at the time it was in Starr County, but now it's known as Jim Hogg County. Tom T. East and Alice East had 3 children. Their first son was Tom T. East Jr., and then their daughter was Lisa East, and then they also had a son, Robert East. And as the family, tried to eke out a living on the land and work with the land, they obviously grew committed to the land and the things that occur on the land, the people, the wildlife, and obviously the cattle and the forage that's produced. And as it turned out, the East family, they managed the East Brothers Cattle Company, and at some point in time, the East Brothers, Tom Jr. and Robert East, ended up dividing up their assets and going in a little bit different directions. And so the San Antonio Viejo was basically under the guidance and leadership of Alice, Lisa, and Robert after Tom Sr. passed away in 1943. And so from 1943 until 2007, when Robert passed away, they were the guiding people managing the land. And so we have documentation going back as early as 1985 that specified and dictated that the East family on the San Antonio Viejo desired to set up a foundation. And this was for several reasons. The first one, and this may be obvious, but there were no heirs within that side of the family, so there was no offspring to pass the land on to, and so they were kind of left with a conundrum. The second principle behind this would be the fact that they were very much committed to keeping the land and the open spaces intact, and so they didn't want to see it divided and fragmented up. And so, so again, going back as early as we have correspondence from as early as 1985 from Alice specifying that she desired for the properties to be set up into some sort of endowment or some sort of trust such that the land could remain intact. And this is, in fact, what occurred. When Robert passed away in 2007, they set up the trust the trust document was executed and implemented, and it took several years, as with many large settlements of trusts and estates, it took several years to really for the foundation to get its legs, so to speak. And so, and that really occurred in about 2012. So in August or September or so of 2012 is when our board of directors hired our current president and CEO, and that would be Dr. Neil Wilkins. And he's, since that time, over the past 4 years now, has pretty much assembled the team that currently constitutes the East Foundation. And so I view it personally as just a blessing and privilege to be able to work for the East family legacy, to be able to work on what amounts to 220,000 acres scattered throughout the South Texas sand sheet on a variety of different things. And it truly is a privilege to be working for the East Foundation. I am the Chief Program Officer and Principal Scientist, which means that I'm kind of oversee and provide direction for our charitable activities, which include research, education, and outreach.
Hey, Tyler.
Yes, sir.
Can I get you to lean a little bit closer to the mic? We're having some folks that are having a little bit hard time to hear.
Okay, very good. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Better?
Yes, much.
Okay, very good. So apologize about that. So going back to the San Antonio Viejo and the East family and their history and their legacy, in October of this past year, or basically last month, Wyman Minzer and Henry Chappell published a book entitled Horses to Ride and Cattle to Cut. It's basically an historical account of the San Antonio Viejo Ranch of Texas, going back from really pre-settlement to settlement, and then through the East family years, and then currently through the East Foundation's management of the San Antonio Viejo. So we have had, the last couple of weeks, we've had 2 book signings, one at the Whitty Museum here in San Antonio, another one at the Bush Library on the campus of SMU in Dallas, and then our final book signing is tonight at the Museum of South Texas History, which is located in Edinburgh. So I would encourage you to, if you're interested in the book itself, to perhaps try to get to Edinburgh if you're close. But nonetheless, it's largely a coffee table book, a picture book that's got a really good historical account of the property itself. So encourage you to look that up and check that out. Okay, so why does the East Foundation exist? First of all, because we believe, and the East family believe, that native rangelands are important for food, water, and wildlife. And so therefore we focus on those factors that most threaten the productivity of native rangelands, things such as exotic animals, as this nilgai calf that you see here, invasive plants, disease issues, and of course the frequent and reoccurring drought that occurs across the properties. A second reason why we exist is because cattle ranching is important to our state's economy and our nation's food supply. So therefore, we operate a working cattle ranch across the foundation lands. And this includes upwards of currently about 4,000 mama cows. We run a cow-calf operation across 6 different properties, totaling, again, 120,000 acres or so. And what this functionally does is it keeps us directly engaged with the challenges and issues that are faced by today's cattle ranchers and cattle raisers. So in other words, really who our audience is and any of our products that we're producing is private landowners and private land managers, specifically those that are interested in livestock production. Another reason why we exist is because we believe and know that kids learn better when they're inspired by the outdoors. And so this includes both innovative programs in the classroom, where we take curriculum into the classroom and deliver natural resources curriculum through partnerships with TWA, for example, but also bringing kids out onto our properties. If you notice that first school bus there, you'll see a bunch of cell phones hanging out the window, and the kids are taking pictures of perhaps the first actual cow that they've ever seen. So in any event, we are very much actively interested and engaged in bringing kids out onto our properties, which we truly view as our living laboratory, both from a scientific standpoint as well as a youth education standpoint. Another reason why we exist is because private lands do matter, and so we conduct outreach efforts that explain the public benefits of private land stewardship, things such as clean water, clean air, wildlife habitats, open spaces, and a variety of other public benefits that are often under-recognized. Really try to bring home the point how these are important to our state and nation's economy as well as our quality of life. Another reason why we're convinced that we exist and what the East Foundation our East family desired was for us, we exist because we need more management-minded scientists and more science-minded managers. There's increasingly becoming a disconnect between a lot of the university students that are being developed in private land and just land management in general. And so we aim to correct that. So we engage with university programs to strengthen the pipeline of talented scientists, as well as informed decision makers, perhaps voters, teachers, engineers, and scientists. So it really crosses the board there. And then finally, we know we exist because we know that ranching and wildlife go together. So we are obviously committed to finding solutions for both wildlife conservation and the production of cattle and livestock as a whole. So again, as I mentioned before, we truly view that our primary audience for all of our charitable activities is the private rancher and landowner that's out there on the ground. So, again, going back to the East family and what they desired through the development of this trust document, obviously they were very much interested in cattle production, and I've already mentioned that we run a cow-calf herd, and so we view and use our land as just a live laboratory for various studies and investigations and findings related to cattle production and cattle productivity. Also very much interested in mammals, things such as, white-tailed deer, as well as carnivore relationships, things such as coyotes and their interactions with cattle production and the production of calves and whatnot. But also not only mammals and cattle, but also bird communities, carnivores and scavengers and whatnot, as well as songbirds and birds that are dependent upon the landscape for their life activities. Also would include herps, reptiles and amphibians, things such as rattlesnakes and horny toads, I guess, as well as invertebrates, insects, butterflies, and particularly monarchs are a big deal right now. There's a lot of concern and issues devoted to that, and we're a player in that realm as well. But also just forage grass, native grasses in particular. We have our properties are approximately 70% that are still or remain in native rangelands, with the other remaining 30% in things such as coastal Bermuda or perhaps buffalo grass as well. But obviously the East family was interested in forage productivity and developing solutions to some of the problems such as drought and the other problems that I've previously mentioned. But ultimately the East family and we are concerned about the land. The land may look like this, which is perhaps a little bit more productive than this. We do have active sand dunes on our El Sal's property, which is located just north of Port Mansfield. And these are active dunes. They're moving on average about 24 feet per year. And so they're actively consuming rangelands and perhaps more productive rangelands. But on the downside, they're also, on the backside, they're also leaving basically habitats that are in early succession. Another main feature of the trust document and the East family's wishes were really the development of people. And so we work closely with our partners. This is a research partners meeting that we held in Kingsville this past August, and a whole suite of graduate students and faculty and staff as well and whatnot that we're actively engaged with. Another feature would be in terms of the people side of things is the historical making sure that we adequately and correctly document the East family legacy, and so we're committed to that and that aspect of people. All right, so I haven't even really spoken about our mission yet. So our mission is to support wildlife conservation and other public benefits of ranching and private land stewardship. And again, we accomplish this through research, education, and outreach. And we've mentioned some of those other private benefits, things such as clean water, clean air, open spaces, wildlife habitat, and a variety of other benefits that the public doesn't really recognize or doesn't adequately recognize. And so we're clearly committed to getting the word out on those things. So here's where our properties occur. We're in South Texas, deep South Texas. Our El Sal's property is on the east there, just north of Port Mansfield. It's about 27,000 acres. Our Santa Rosa properties in Kennedy County, it's about 18,000 acres. Our Buena Vista properties in Jim Hall County, it's about 15,000 acres. And then the big mothership, so to speak, is the San Antonio Viejo Ranch, which is where we base and operate all of our cattle operations and infrastructure operations out of it. That's functionally our headquarters, is the San Antonio Viejo Ranch, and it's about 149. It's actually closer to 150,000 acres currently. And then a couple smaller properties, 5,000 acres just south of Hebronville, entitled the Ranchito. And then we've got a section of land as well called the Gotchapin. Really, and I should mention, we also have administrative offices up here in San Antonio. So many of our administrative functions originate out of San Antonio. And for those of us that have a lot of business down on the ranches, that means we're traveling quite a bit. We're heading down south to one or more of the properties just about every week. And so that's pretty exciting. There's the unifying feature, if you took a snapshot of this particular map, would be the South Texas sand sheet, or also known as the coastal sand plains or the Wild Horse Desert. That's really the unifying feature of our properties. And so we develop and do a lot of studies that look at comparing these different areas in terms of moisture gradients, rainfall gradients, soil variations and gradients from across the entire sand sheet. And so that's one of the unique features of the East Foundation is we're able to really capture what's going on in the South Texas sand sheet from multiple locations. I should also mention that there's a natural rainfall gradient from east to west. On the east side, El Sal's and Santa Rosa get upwards of 23 to 24 inches of rainfall per year. And then as you move further west, getting into the western side of the San Antonio Viejo, it's lucky to get 18 to 19 inches a year on average. So again, another gradient type of analysis that we could look at and present and analyze. And again, our target audience is landowners, and so our goal is to produce products that help ranchers ranch better. Okay, and mentioned that there's a natural gradient in rainfall, but there's also extremely, as y'all know, anybody familiar with South Texas knows that there's extremely variable rainfall patterns. For example, from the NOAA station out of Hebronville, the median or mean is roughly 21 inches per year, but and that would be the red bar. But what you notice is that we never get, spot on or really even all that close to 21 inches per year. It's either far short or extremely high. So again, you've got this variable oscillating rainfall pattern that's a natural event that occurs in the area, and ranchers are trying to manage their cattle herds and ultimately forage production to be able to have a sustainable enterprise on their properties. With that as a backdrop as well, you've also got variable cattle markets, and so you couple those three things together, and ranchers have a really hard job to do in the South Texas sand sheet. And so again, our aim is to help ranchers ranch better. Okay, so from our kind of why statements are the reasons why we believe we exist and the trust document suggests we exist, we've kind of come up with 4 program priorities. The first one is to conduct research that makes a difference. And so we focus on those factors that most threaten the productivity of native rangelands. And I've mentioned these before, things such as exotic animals like nilgai antelope, invasive grasses, drought, and disease. Our second program priority is to improve university programs. It's kind of our observation that many of the states and perhaps throughout the nation, university programs and particularly natural resources programs, they've kind of lost their way. Many of the faculty would rather be working in Papua New Guinea or Belize or somewhere away from the United States and particularly away from Texas. And so we aim to change that. We aim to get curriculum and faculty focus back centered on Texas and particularly the private lands of Texas. So we engage with universities to develop changes in undergraduate experiences, graduate curricula, as I've mentioned, and also faculty focus. Our third program priority is to expand the opportunities that are available to the youth of South Texas. If you were to, a couple of years ago, if you were to draw a line from, let's say, Laredo to San Antonio, over to Victoria or even Corpus Christi and south, very little natural resource curriculum had been distributed within that region, and particularly within the Rio Grande Plains or the lower Rio Grande Valley, which, by the way, has about 1.7 million people that live in the Rio Grande Valley. So it was just really an untapped and underserved in terms of natural resources curriculum area of the of Texas. And so again, we will deliver programming and knowledge to the youth of South Texas, which we believe will not only benefit the region now, but also into the future. And I just love pictures and I love kids. If you notice, the 4 kids in a row here. The gentleman on the far right, he's just ecstatic and fired up. The girl on the far left, she's pretty fired up. The second guy from the left, he's fired up. And then there's this third guy kind of tucked in the middle there. He's completely petrified, and that's just neat to see. I mean, not that he's petrified, but just the different range of emotions that kids have when they experience the outdoors. And again, we firmly believe that kids learn better when they're inspired by the outdoors. Our final program priority is to lead effective outreach efforts, and so we deliberately engage with like-minded partners at a variety of levels to enhance conservation around the state and the nation. And really, we aim to function as leaders on the outreach front of reliable information to landowners and other user groups. This particular picture was taken from the San Antonio Viejo Ranch. We had a drone demonstration day by our security manager who uses drones in his security functions. And really the purpose was to equip landowners with knowledge related to the applicability and how they could perhaps use drones not only from a security standpoint, but also just in the general management of their properties. So just an example of some of our outreach efforts. Give you an idea of what type of use of our living laboratory that we have experienced. In the 2015-2016 school year, we worked closely with 16 different graduate students and 3 postdocs. We had 150 undergraduate volunteers, which were they were undergraduate students which were either volunteers or some of them were paid a little bit as technicians. And this represented 20 states from across the nation. And you can actually add Canada to that as well. We had one gentleman from Canada. And so this is kind of fitting in with our model. We desire or think there's value in bringing students in from a variety of backgrounds that may not see the world the exact same way that we do, but then kind of teach them up and coach them up on the values and benefits of private land stewardship while they're working on our properties. And then when they return to their home states or home areas, wherever those may be, the idea would be that they're able to disseminate that information through their colleagues that they may have up there. And this is particularly true for like postdocs that will be seeking faculty appointments and can potentially influence literally hundreds, if not thousands, of college-age kids. Should also mention that we've, during that period, we worked with 6 different universities. And if you notice the red from 2005 on the graph, and the green from 2016, the months of March, April, and May, and June and July, so March through July, are really our peak months, and we're averaging a little bit over 20 researchers or students per day, every day, and so that includes weekends, that includes holidays and whatnot. So we're just about at capacity, to be honest, with our current infrastructure as it exists. So we're pretty fired up about that. Just going to take a snapshot of several of our research projects that we've been implementing and been conducting over the past several years. Just to give you an idea of what type of research efforts that we're engaged in and involved in. And I should mention, for all of these, we partner closely with like-minded entities. So in the case of the population parameters of white-tailed deer, we're working closely with the Caesar Kleber Wildlife Research Institute down at Texas A&M University, Kingsville. And so for this particular project, wanted to know what were the baseline parameters or metrics for an unhunted, unmanaged white-tailed deer population in South Texas. Those are few and far between, but our properties essentially have no harvest management. They have no feeding of supplements at all, so protein or corn. Also, there's no high fence, and so functionally there's essentially no management. What do those herds look like? And because we looked at 4 different properties
across the sand sheet from east to west, we're able to look at things such as rainfall variations and gradients, and what are those impacts on fawn recruitment, what are those impacts on antler growth, what are those impacts on body weights as well as body condition scores. And so this particular project started in 2011, and this weekend we'll wrap up our 6th year of deer captures across the 4 properties. And during that time, we've been catching on those 4 properties between about 450 deer and as many as 750 deer. So we've got a pretty good snapshot going. The original student on the project was Corey Gann, and Corey is currently a Texas Parks and Wildlife biologist based and stationed out of Kingsville. And our current student on the project is Michaela Rice, and Michaela originates from Minnesota. So again, one of those students that we bring in, hopefully train up and get them equipped and to appreciate the values of private lands and their management, and then perhaps she'll return to Minnesota and champion that message, or not. Maybe she'll stay in Texas. Another project that we've been engaged with is really looking at the interactions and competition between cattle, white-tailed deer, and nilgai antelope. Nilgai antelope, of course, are native of India. They were brought in various times throughout the last century. Current estimates are in South Texas are somewhere between 36 and 38,000 nilgai that occur. And historically, it was believed through the bite counts and things like that nilgai and cattle were in direct competition, that they both were grazers, that they both almost exclusively selected for forages or diets comprised of grass. Through some pretty high-tech stable isotope analyses, the student on the project was able to demonstrate that the stable isotope signatures did not suggest that. And in fact, there was no dietary overlap between cattle and nilgai, and that nilgai really functioned more as a browser. Having said that, the period of her investigation was squarely in the drought in 2011 and 2012 that devastated parts of South Texas, and so there probably wasn't a whole lot of grass available anyway. But nonetheless, we've got 2 more years of data related to that, and the message is pretty consistent. White-tailed deer and nilgai compete, and cattle and white-tailed deer do not. And I mentioned the student on the project on the right there, Stacy Hines. She's from North Carolina, and she's since graduated with a PhD and is now back in North Carolina. And then Ramon Saenz is the current student on the project, and he's carrying on with the dietary overlap and grazing dynamics study. Another big project that we've got going on is related to ocelot conservation and management. We are blessed. We are extremely blessed to house our home upwards of 26 different ocelots on our El Sal's property, which is just north of Fort Mansfield. It's believed that in the United States that there's only about 80 ocelots that still remain at the most. However, populations throughout Mexico and down even through Central America, down to Belize or wherever, there are ocelots that occur there. But in the United States, it's roughly 80, and we've photo documented using camera traps and then pelt identification of spots, 26 unique individuals. So that roughly represents a third of the known population has been photo documented on our East El Sal's property, our El Sal's property. So obviously we're going to be a major player in the recovery plan and implementation of the recovery plan, and we work closely with Mike Tuis down at the Cesar Claiborne Wildlife Research Institute and his students to again generate reliable information for the recovery of ocelots. And there's a whole suite of different students and graduate and postdocs that have worked
for Mike on that particular project. Another project is just the development of aerial surveys for large mammals, refining the double observer technique for large mammals, which include deer, nilgai, wild pigs, javelina, and even cattle. Mary Anelia, on the right there, she was the initial master student on that project. And Mary's from Michigan, and she is now a deer biologist for the state of Wisconsin. So she's returned home, and again, hopefully carrying forward that message and appreciation for private lands and their conservation and management. And then our current postdoc on that study is Aaron Foley, who happens to be from New York State. Going to hit some just baseline types of studies, some foundational studies that we've implemented. When we kicked off in 2012, it was clear to us that we needed to really have a better understanding of what actually occurs on our different properties, and then to create a scientific or natural history or biodiversity collection of those specimen. So we focused on mammals, primarily small mammals, birds, and then amphibians and reptiles as well. And we currently, our scientific collection is near complete, and that particular study is wrapping up this year. We're working through the biodiversity and research teaching collections at Texas A&M University on this particular project. And through this project, we've had the opportunity to work with, on the top right, Aleda Galan, John Pistone below her, and to his left, Connor Adams, and then just to the up above Connor there is Justin Henningsen, and Justin was a postdoc from Maine. So we're fired up about our collection just about being completed, and we'll be using this to not only in our research activities to be able to compare divergent and diversity and whatnot across the state or region as a whole, but also in our education front, where we've got these prepped samples. Someone wants to see a striped skunk. Well, guess what? We've got one, and here it is, and here's what it looks like. So that'll be co-housed. The actual collection will be co-housed up in College Station, and then the other half will be on the San Antonio Viejo Ranch. So again, keeping with foundational types of studies, we need the ability to detect changes, both short-term and long-term changes that might occur on our land. That's one of the unique reasons why we exist, we feel like. It's that and it's the responsible thing to do is to have a monitoring system in place where we can determine changes in grasses and vegetative composition, as well as mammal communities, bird communities, and herb and reptile communities. And so our first phase of this project is wrapping up. It was basically 3 years of data collection to have data that could be used in turn to develop recommendations on how to go forward with a long-term monitoring program. And Jeremy Baumgart is the postdoc on that particular project, and he's from Washington State. And then some people might think it's basic things, but just a GIS or Geographic Information System on what are our assets that occur on the ground. Where are our fences located, and what condition are they in? What type of fences are they? What's the expected life expectancy on these fences? And the same could be said for windmills, and we have 229 different windmills that occur on our properties. What's their condition? What's their life expectancy? When should we, in developing a replacement or maintenance schedule, how can we better capture those? And we were working closely with the Institute for Renewable Natural Resources out of College Station in San Antonio to develop our GIS that will really help us not only with research endeavors, but also and ultimately so that we can make more informed and better decisions. So it'll definitely be a decision-making tool. Another one of our newer projects is looking at large-scale, operational-scale patch burns
in Gulf Bluegrass or Sacawista communities on our coastal property, the El Sal's. And so these operational scale burn plots are, they're all at least 500 acres, with the largest one being about 650 acres. And so, again, one of our unique features and one of our abilities as a living laboratory with a lot of land is to be able to conduct operational scale experiments. Those that are very similar to what an operator might experience or need information about. And so, again, that's a unique feature. Many fire studies are done, research studies are done on small plots of, maybe at the biggest 5 to 10 acres. Well, we're burning 600 acres, and we've got 10 different plots. And so we're looking at, vegetative responses, nutrient quality, and how those changes pre and post burn. And there's both winter burns and summer burns. But we're also looking at cattle movements and how do they utilize this newfound and newly available resource in forage production. So first of all, how far do they move? Well, first of all, do they move into the burn plots? Secondly, how far do they move? And then lastly, how long do they stay there? What's the benefit in terms of time post-burn? And so we're working with the Cesar Claiborne Wildlife Research Institute on this project, and the student is Victoria Haynes, and she's a firecracker. She does, it is a fire project. She does good work, and we're fired up for her outcomes from this being produced. But let's see. So another big, large-scale project that we have going on, we entitled the Coloraditas Research and Demonstration Area, and it's 18,000 acres. So again, it's operational scale. And what we wanted, the main questions we want to address are what are the long-term impacts of moderate, and in our case, moderate is a cow to 50 acres, and then heavy stocking, and in our case, that's a cow per 35 acres, and then what are the long-term impacts of continuous and rotational grazing? So again, it's 18,000 acres. We carved out a whole block that was previously undensed. So we had to put roughly 43 miles of cross fencing in to look at the different color-coded treatments. And so we've got 2 treatments on the west side that are high-density continuous, and then on the west side we've got 2 treatments that are moderate density continuous grazing, and then we've got 2 one-herd, 3 pasture systems, one at the high density or heavy stocking rate, and then one at the moderate grazing intensity. And we're monitoring and looking at all sorts of different variables related to the responses of cattle, for example, reproductive performance, pounds of weaned calf per acre, cost per cow, and then just general overall herd performance metrics, things such as pregnancy weight rates, weaning weights, and then, of course, gathering rates as well. From the vegetative side of things, we're looking at both forage availability and then vegetative composition and structure throughout the Coloraditas area in all the 10 different pastures across the different treatments. Just to give you an idea of maybe how bad it was back in the early days in 11, 12, and a little bit into 13. We deferred cattle. We pulled cattle out of the Coloraditas in March of 2014 and began twice a year vegetative samplings in terms of forage availability. And so and the blue line is what I'm mainly talking about here. So in the summer of 2014, after we'd already gotten some rains, the average forage production of available forage was approximately, a little bit right around 300 pounds per acre, which is pretty slight. And then with favorable rains and the deferred grazing, contrast that with the fall of 2015 when we had over 4,000 pounds per acre. We did implement and we introduced 435 mama cows divided by treatments with individual animal IDs and all this and color-coded ear tags in December of last year of 2015, and that was largely possible because we had the available forage. So it's just a snapshot of what a little bit of rain can do, and really it's a testament to how resilient these native rangelands are, particularly in the South Texas sand sheet. We're also monitoring wildlife, so things such as small mammals, breeding bird counts, owls and nightjars. Let's see, we're also looking at northern bobwhite abundance. In the northern part is what we call the coloradicus, and so doing 100% counts, flying low and slow. I think it's like 23 feet high or maybe even lower, and then count number of coveys, covey size, and things like that in the coloradicus itself. But Andrea, the graduate student on the project, her name's Andrea Bruno. She's also got 3 reference pastures to the south on parts of the San Antonio Viejo. We're monitoring, as part of our aerial surveys, we're also monitoring large mammals. And so we're really excited about the coloradicus. One thing I haven't mentioned is that this is a long-term project. We've committed at least 10 years of analyzing and looking at the responses in vegetation and the other metrics that I mentioned. It's information that's greatly needed within that particular region and perhaps beyond throughout the state of Texas in terms of what the responses are. And really something I can't reiterate enough is that this is conducted at the operational scale, with each pasture size being roughly 4,000 acres, which just so happens to coincide with the average land holding within the region. So it's really brought us together, and we're excited about that. Quickly, I'm kind of running long. I need to move this along pretty quick. But boy, we're also excited about our education efforts and activities. Wanted to, again, thank the Texas Wildlife Association. We're working in partnership with the Texas Wildlife Association to deploy lands curriculum actually in the classrooms. And so this is a snapshot from the 2015-2016 school year, and the efforts of the contract educator, who's Elisa Velador, are really impactful. She's gone into a region with no contacts and no prior really natural resources curriculum, and it's my understanding, I think she had somewhere between 14 and 15,000 contacts in the classroom during that one school year, and so she's really making a difference. And we, again, are just thankful for the Texas Wildlife Association and the lands curriculum, both wildlife discovery trunks and wildlife by design curriculum that we're able to deploy in partnership with them. And then also we bring kids out on the land. We have an event both in the spring and the fall on 2 different properties, where each spring and fall we bring somewhere between 1,200 and 1,500 different students out onto our properties to circulate between 6 different stations where they learn things such as this presentation on the left presented by the Museum of South Texas History, really about the settlement of South Texas, to just a general cattle discussion. How many stomachs does a cow have, and things like that. But again, it's just an awesome opportunity to have the kids out on the land. Again, it's our living laboratory, and I think we as being the East Foundation staff get as much out of it as the kids do. But it's clear from the smiles on their face that they really enjoy it. One of the central themes throughout this talk has been partners and partnerships. I've kind of selected a few of our main partners here. You can look through those. There are others. One of the ones that I wanted to highlight briefly is the Whitty Museum. The East Foundation, let me back up. The Whitty Museum is launching its the new Whitty is what they're calling it, and they've undergone a large capital campaign and a lot of renovations to the Whitty Museum, which is, of course, located on Broadway in San Antonio. They also have revamped their Texas Wild exhibit, and part of the renovations, the East Foundation will have an East Foundation land lab within the Whitty Museum, where we will be able to distribute
land stewardship curriculum and natural resources curriculum to the folks who go to the museum. And in total, adults and kids, the Whitty Museum has 400,000 visitors per year, and it's estimated that in terms of school-age kids, specifically that will be going through receiving natural resources and private lands curriculum, it's estimated to be about 75,000 school-age kids per year will be impacted. And so we're really excited about that partnership. That particular rollout of the new Whitty is scheduled to occur in March of 2017. So we're really excited about that new partnership and working with the Whitty. So that's about it. Just wanted to reiterate the message that the East family and the East Foundation believes and exists because ranching and wildlife go together. Again, one of our 6 reasons why we exist, but we're committed to the fact that ranching and wildlife go together. And that's about it. Would encourage you, if you've got questions or want more information, to check out our website. It's located there. And that's, Clint, that concludes my presentation, so I can take questions.
Very good. I appreciate that, Tyler. So far, it looks like they're going to let you off easy. Excuse me, we don't have any questions right now, but I did want to share, or I guess encourage questions and share a couple of links first. The first one is a link to our webinar page. It's up in the chat window right now. If you go to that webinar page, you can see 2 things: a full schedule of webinars for next year, and you'll also find a link for the archived version of this presentation and all of our other presentations. And so if you'd like to watch this again or reference anybody else to it, I'll have that up in the next week or so, and you'll be able to go watch this recorded presentation. I would like to point out that our next presentation is going to be on December 15th. It's going to cover patterns of supplemental feed consumption in white-tailed deer. It's going to be presented by Emily Belser with Cesar Claiborne Wildlife Research Institute. Let me look here to see if we have any questions. I don't see any. Do you have anything else for us, Tyler? Oh. Let's see. We had one come in. Where does the East Foundation see itself in, say, 20 years?
That's a great question. Is my mute off? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So the question was, where does the East Foundation see itself in 20 years? And that's a really good question. I mean, oftentimes when you're in the trenches, starting off with what amounts to is a startup. You don't see necessarily the forest for the trees that are right in front of you. And so I mean, in 20 years and really forever, we would view ourselves, and I hope our vision would be that we would be a center for excellence in not only South Texas, but also the state, and then ultimately the nation as a whole. We want to be renowned and known as a center for excellence. And so that's where I would see myself in 10 years, if not 20 years, and beyond.
Okay, excellent. It doesn't look like we have anything else, so if you don't have anything else, I guess we'll sign off. I appreciate it once again, and like I said, if y'all, I'll leave the chat window up for a little bit if you want to grab that link and check out our webinars. And once again, this one will be recorded or be archived sometime in the next week or so. So Tyler, I really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you, Clint.
Yes, sir.
It's a pleasure.
Absolutely.